Alright. Son of a bitch. Hello, this is Billy, and welcome to the new show, Turning Pages. I'll be reviewing books in a more drawn-out exploration style. I will not be using a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 5, and especially not a thumbs up or a thumbs down system, because I'm hoping to be as nuanced as possible regarding multiple positive and or negative aspects of each one of these books. I want to work on books that you might not know you should read, books that a lot of people have read that deserve either further analysis or are secretly terrible. I'll be trying to mix it up between genres, fiction and non-fiction, and perhaps a graphic novel here and there. This show is going to be different than the other shows on our channel. Unlike Talking Torsos, this is not as much of a discussion. But I'm always open to the idea of book discussions. It would require multiple people to finish the book at around the same time, so I believe that those are going to be the exception rather than the rule. Today, I'm reviewing a Stephen King book, Joyland, which is admittedly an inauspicious start. I'd say a majority of you have probably read a Stephen King book before, or at the very least, you almost certainly have watched a movie or television program based on his books. He is seen as a master of horror, although his highest rated books seem to be ventures into other genres. The book today is Joyland, and I'm going to split this review into two sections. One with a spoiler-free review, and one with a spoiler-heavy discussion. The book clocks in at a pretty cool 309 pages in a paperback edition, and it's definitely an easy read, which I do not intend as a criticism. In fact, just the opposite. Stephen King seems to either write out these tight, self-contained stories of varying quality, or long, overarching narratives with various plots also of varying quality, weaving in and out of each other that usually falls apart at the end, sometimes involving atom bombs, sometimes involving giant celestial turtles. This book ends in a natural place, and is well-paced. Stephen King is not my favorite author, but probably the author whose books I've read the most of, just purely a numbers game. I know L. Ron Hubbard technically has the record on that one, but you couldn't pay me enough. I enjoy aspects of these larger books I've referenced, but I think the best stories of his are either shortish novels or novellas. Things like The Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption, The Body, The Shining. Joyland tops that list for me. If you look at the cover of the book and read the blurbs, this seems destined to be a murder mystery, intentionally evoking the style of old pulp magazines. While there is a crime mystery aspect to this book, I'd say that it's incidental to the plot more than instrumental. What the book is truly about is coming of age for a 21-year-old just getting out of his first serious relationship, which is a pretty interesting age choice with this style of story. The framing is a type that King seems rather attached to, that of an old man looking back on his life, so it's interspersed with reflections and informations about the future of characters that, in a different story, would remove the stakes from this. If it were truly a crime thriller, as the cover suggests, this would have a deflating effect. Instead, it elevates the story with a sort of nostalgic feeling. It's a book with some peril in it, but you as the reader feel safe. It's a good choice for this particular story, and it allows my favorite line in the book, which is, when you're 21, life is a roadmap. It's only when you get to be 25 or so that you expect that you've been looking at the map upside down, and not until you're 40 are you entirely sure. By the time you're 60, take it from me, you're fucking lost. If you've wanted to get into more Stephen King, but those overarching epics are either too daunting or not worth the time, which is frankly something I can't even disagree with, and I read them, then I recommend tracking down this little B-side, at least as a reminder that when he's not being overly masturbatory, the guy just can write a book. It's also full of classic rock references, so that's another Easter egg that made it enjoyable for me personally. I will say that there is a small content warning for violence against women, not in the narrative, but explained after the fact in a true crime-type discussion. Spoiler section. If I had a nickel for every time Stephen King wrote a very good book that just happens to have a man who wears a dog costume having sex, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. I mean, at least this time the character took the dog costume off first. The pulp style on the cover isn't entirely without cause, as the murder mystery part intentionally follows a few distinct tropes of the genre. There's the first obvious fake-out, which seems so obvious at an early enough point in the narrative that I don't think an overly attentive reader would fall for it, but that really isn't the intention. Much like with the close-up magic of the actual antagonist, you know there's a trick there, and you guess it before it happens. Then, when it doesn't, they pull off an even bigger trick by the end. The prestige here being another common mystery trope, that the most likable non-protagonist character, except for Stephen King's second favorite story trope behind writer main characters, which is vaguely psychic kids who talk like adults, ends up being the murderer. But within these pre-played story beats, we have subversions. The attractive red-headed woman almost immediately pairs off with the less attractive but more charismatic friend. The kind old man operating an amusement park with the shady past just ends up being a pretty nice dude. The kid with magical powers ends up being completely unable to save himself. And his death is more or less off-page. It feels closer to the real world despite this supernatural aspect, and despite the fact that ending up on a Ferris wheel, being held at gunpoint by a serial-killing magician, isn't an entirely relatable experience for at least half of the people reading this book. There is also a fair criticism I would like to make regarding the Madame Fortuna character, which is a deliberate and harmful stereotype of the Romani culture. And I want to give some benefit of the doubt, and I do admit that this particular character would absolutely be present in an amusement park in the 1970s. But there's no real admittance from the older Devon that this was an issue, which given his age and background would be unsurprising in real life. But Stephen King wrote Thinner, which is obscenely racist regarding the Romani people, so I'm not really going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. That stereotype isn't helped by the fact that this woman literally does have magic powers, as that plays into the same trap as Thinner does. If I have any further criticism, it's one of the things that Stephen King just does, despite no one else really enjoying it when he does. The book gets pornographic with consensual adults, so there's some progress here you're making, Stephen, for a scene that is obviously led up to, but what could have been a tasteful line of dialogue becomes a description of 3 rounds of sex in one night. There's also sexism in the book, which is both a regularity for King and for the genre. But I will say it's at least either portrayed as negative, thanks to the character Aaron's disagreements, or as purely subjective, from the point of view of an old man. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about Devon's life being saved by ghostly intervention, but we get just enough time with Eddie that it feels deserved. I read a lot, and many of the books I read are serious, and they tackle serious subjects, ones that need to be discussed, and discussed often. But every now and then, you need something a little fun. I've read this book multiple times, despite its intentional lack of substance. This book is about the carnival, and it's just like the cotton candy sold there. It's sweet and easy to consume. It dissolves quickly, but it was an enjoyable enough experience that you might want to get another taste next time the carnival gates swing open. Over and out.